Oh boy, I'm gonna get some hate for this one. The Stand, the battle between good and evil after a deadly plague kills 99% of America. A battle that sees the devil versus God, but it didn't feel like that. It didn't feel like that whatsoever. I think this book is mid. I think it was fun to read, but for it being the longest book in Stephen King's bibliography, I will never touch this book again. And listen, I put a lot of annotations in here. I did a lot of reflecting and thinking about the book. I tried to take notes as best I could so that I can have a genuine opinion. And I'm not going to break down everything. I'm not going to break down stuff all that much, but just for the amount of work that you have to put into this book, to see the ending is just stupid. Like, again, this is like another ending with Stephen King where I'm just like why in the world is Randall Flagg reincarnated? I don't get it. I don't get it. And I see that, you know, he had other names before, so maybe he's like, when he dies, he comes back alive. It's a little bit vague, to be honest, because the whole electricity ball and the nuke, dude, I don't know. It just felt like this book, like the first part of it, like the whole pandemic part was like awesome. It was great. I really enjoyed it. And then once we started having the multiple POVs of Larry, Stu, Franny, and Nick Andros, who I like the most, you know, the pieces were moving around. Okay, it was cool when they started moving up together and they started meeting up. But then it just like, it got really slow, man. It just got like really, really slow. And like, dude, like to be honest, like there was so much detail about Harold and his teenage jealousy and angst, and he blows up people. And it's like, dude, Harold looked like the worst of the bad guys because there was so much emphasis on this. And plus, like, again, we didn't see so much of Randall Flagg. We got so much detail about Trash Can Man and then him, like, getting the nuke and stuff. It just felt like a hodgepodge of ideas and chaos. And it was just chaotic. And maybe that was Stephen King's idea, because maybe it was that, you know, stories and books may be a little bit too manufactured and he wants the absolute chaos because that's what life is, you know, plans don't work out, and that is, you know, what it is. But for almost 500,000 words, I hope that like the storytelling is going to be a little bit more cohesive. I'm just disappointed with this because on the Stephen King subreddit, so many people clamor for this book. So many people think this is like the best book he's ever written. And I, in my opinion, can't agree. I don't even think it's not in my top 5. It's a 6 on 10 book. I'm sorry. I'm just saying what I think about it and how it impacted me. And it wasn't boring. It wasn't like a slog in terms of like, oh, I dread reading it. Like, I read this book in a month. I read this book in a month. It, like, by all accounts, like, I read this book in a month. It was not that bad. But overhyped, 100% overhyped. No doubt in my mind, at least for me, overhyped. I understand why this book was edited down to 300,000 words. Now I get it. It was because of they couldn't print enough paper and to make it in a book at the time, and it wasn't necessarily because the editor inherently thought that like the book needed to be cut down. That was not the sole reason, based on what I've read in the prologue or the introduction of this book. But brother, like, we didn't need so much detail about Trash Can Man. We didn't need so much detail about Harold. And, you know, I would be curious to see what were like the biggest differences. I was like, well, I've read the big one. Now let me read the original cut and see if it's better. I'm not doing that. I'm not touching this book again. It is what it is. Again, I just feel like the evilness of Randall Flagg was not as pronounced as I wanted it to. And once in the last part, we start getting Randall Flagg, you know, he was more central to the story. The guy starts losing his power. He starts losing his aura of evilness. He starts losing his aura of infallibility. Dude, like, this guy is crucifying people on crosses. That's cool. I would have liked so much more. We didn't get enough Randall Flagg. The whole thing about Nadine and her getting like thrown off the roof by Randall Flagg is just like, the dude's like losing his power. Like, dude, we hardly got to see him, bro. We hardly got to see his power. That's the issue. That's the biggest thing, you know? We hardly got to see his power, and he's like losing his fucking shit. And I'm just like, bro, like what's going on? Like, why is this happening? So it's just incoherent. It's inconsistent with what like I was expecting with like a bad guy, especially this guy being like the imp of Satan. And I didn't really feel so connected with the main characters. I thought that Stu was vanilla. I thought that Franny, that her story was more interesting than Stu. You had the sociologist Glenn, who by all accounts is the equivalent to, I believe, Michael in Salem's Lot, as he was like the expert, like. And then you had Larry Underwood, this musician who just followed all his vices and was trying to atone for his sins and be a changed man. And he just gets nuked at the end. Dude, like, what the fuck? So that's why this story just felt incoherent at times, because like it was just like a little bit chaotic, and I felt like Stephen King was just like trying to throw spaghetti at a wall and just hopefully something stuck. Because like let's talk about the chaotic nature of bringing in the spies. They all get killed, and then like one of them, being Tom Cullen, like the dude comes back. We don't even know like what he was gonna say to them if he didn't like bump into Stu. And it just felt as though like the only reason why he was there was like as like a vehicle of the plot to like save Stu. And then we had like this whole journey of them coming back, and the payoff of it didn't hit me. It didn't connect. But for the amount of effort that you have to go and read this book, it's not worth it. It's not a 5-star book. It's not a 4-star book. Like, The Shining is better. Salem's Lot is better. Different Seasons, although that's a collection of novellas, better. Misery, better. Cujo, while I think very polarizing, better. Just because, again, the amount of effort that you need to go into reading these books is like 3 times less. Those books are about 1/3 of the length of this. And how many books do you realistically read a year? Maybe between 20 to 50 books if you are very consistent and you read a lot. But for the general people, the general population that don't read, The Stand, this scares the shit out of them. It scared the shit out of me. It was on my bookshelf for a couple months, and I kept putting it off. Because I'm like, damn, I've never read a book this big. But I will say this. I don't regret reading this book, because it taught me a valuable lesson of just focusing, sticking with it, and it gives me the confidence to read many other larger books, like The Count of Monte Cristo, which I plan on reading at some point this year. So for So while I don't think that The Stand merits all the hype, in my opinion, again, art is subjective. You can crucify me if you want in the comments and tell me I don't understand the story, but let me just say, it didn't stick with me. All that aside, I'm very glad that I read it because it broke a mental barrier in my head that I couldn't read big books or I couldn't understand them. People would say maybe I don't understand the whole sacrifice and the dread and stuff, but just I'm glad that I read it because now I can start reading the Dark Tower series. And apparently this gives important context. I know that I think Randall Flagg shows up in The Eyes of the Dragon, I think. That's what I believe. But anyway, that's how I feel about this book. It's the prose is fine for Stephen King. I like his prose. The characters were meh. Although Nick Andros' story was the best one. I thought that he was so interesting and he died unceremoniously. That was savage by Stephen King. And I liked it. I thought it was really good. I thought that was good. But that's kind of where my praise fades away and fizzles. So yeah, roast me in the comments if you want, or tell me that I am right about others. But for my 22nd book of Stephen King, and I read The Stand, I'm glad I read it, but I'm disappointed by its content. So it's a 6 on 10 for me. Good enough. It's mid. It's fine. But I'm not reading this book ever again. So, as always, Stephen King, forever.